When you're moving from place to place, Good morning, good morning, morning, good morning, morning.
Good morning, viewers. We just at about 7:10 a.m. I'm Julien Skeete, and welcome back to the Tobago Updates morning show, coming to you here live from the Port Mall in Scarborough, Tobago. As we head on into this first interview, we'll be chatting with Hanif Benjamin, clinical traumatologist, youth development specialist. Let me make sure I get the pronunciation right. And we'll be speaking school violence. What is the solution? Good morning to you and welcome.
Blessed good morning. Thank you for having me.
Indeed. And, as we get the conversation started this morning, I want us to dive firstly into a sense. And I've worked with you for some time, done sessions, positive youth development and so on. Tell us about your area of specialty in the first instance before we dive on into the topic at hand. For those who perhaps have not heard of Hanif Benjamin and wondering, who is this gentleman coming to tell me?
Well, I'm president and CEO of the Center for Human Development Limited, which is a specialized trauma, psychological and training and development company. But personally, I'm a clinical therapist, a clinical and forensic traumatologist, and I'm also a youth development specialist and also a field traumatologist. So I mainly deal with trauma in the main, more so from a youth development perspective. As you mentioned, we would have done positive youth development training. So a lot of my work include working with schools, with youth development, youth programs, but also being able to deal with trauma on all levels.
All right. And as we touch into the topic this morning, I want to make that comparison with what I described most recently as then and now. Being mischievous, being troublesome, some elements of violence is not new to our school system.
Correct.
What would you say is fundamentally different from then versus now?
Clearly, what we are seeing in the first instance is our youth are angry. They're extremely angry. We are seeing it in the way they fight, the way they interact, the way they speak to one another, the way they sing, the way they communicate. They are angry. And I also think what is fundamentally different is that our young people, they have not found a voice to explain this anger. They themselves don't understand it. And so if they don't understand it, they can't really explain how they feel, what is going on with them. And thirdly, I believe that they don't trust the adults in the room to express, even when they can, how they feel. So in essence, our young people are literally alone. And I think that is a fundamental difference from then to now. Then we had a neighborhood. We had a community. We had church in a different light where people came home. Young people was able to, talk and express how they feel to people. I don't think that has happened. And I think a big part of that, and we cannot discount what COVID-19 did to our young people. The level of isolation, the level of trauma, the level of devices. You see, they have now plunged themselves into the device where having what they call face-to-face conversation is a difficult thing. And Julian, it is so weird sometimes in a therapy session, we're talking via WhatsApp because they have not learned the art of verbalizing using mouth. So we are using WhatsApp within a session sometimes. So it means that if our young people have not found a way to navigate their voice, then the action. Our youth speak two ways and two ways only, through emotion and behaviors, both of which we are seeing very dysregulated in our school system. And the final point on this is family, right? I think we have a serious challenge with family life. We have become extremely busy because we have to. We are on the roads longer because of traffic. We are working multiple jobs because the cost of living. And so the time spent with our children, grooming and guiding and molding, is also lacking. And we're also seeing where we have a lot of younger parents as well. And so the grandparent effect, it has also dwindled significantly. And Julian, God, somehow our young people are not in the church, mosque, mondu, wherever they need to be as we were back then. It was Sunday school in the morning, Sunday school in the evening, Bible study on a Wednesday, crusade on a Thursday. Now our young people are not in church as well. So when you put all of those factors together, we see what we see in our school, a level of violence that is unparalleled. I mean, it's no longer the knuckle scuff out again. It's different things, gun, weapons that is being used in our school system.
So, and I'm listening to you, and so I can't help but just nodding my head as we go along. And therefore, I want to take a bit of a different approach. Many people, when they start this conversation about school violence, you want to speak about the individual in question and the young person. And I always say, you've got to give a young person a chance and to believe in them. At
Definitely.
least one person, they need to believe in them. And if I want to start this conversation in the reverse, let's start with the challenges that exist from the perspective of the homes and the communities from which these young people come from. How do we begin to correct things from that perspective? Because people, as I made the point recently, and it's very clear. Young people don't just pop out of anywhere and become violent.
I agree with you.
And suddenly. So tell us a little bit about what can we do looking at, in the first instance, before we even get to the young person, looking at the homes and the communities from which they come.
A lot of persons are going to say this morning, Hanif always say, there are no bad children. I don't believe there are bad children. Now, there might be some outliers. Something went on with the genes somewhere. But in the main, there are no bad children. Yuri Brunfriend-Brenner, let me put on my lecture hat for a quick second. Yuri Brunfriend-Brenner developed the ecological model. And in that ecological model, he designed what surrounds the young person straight up until we're talking about in utero. And what Yuri Brunfriend-Brenner 1979 told us, that if the social system that surrounds that child is not working, we can't expect a working child. We cannot have children hungry and want them to come to school and perform. We cannot have domestic violence in the home and all night the child can't sleep and then try to understand why this child is sleeping at 9 o'clock in the classroom. We cannot have parents who don't say I love you to your child and expect this young man to show love and empathy. We cannot have fatherless homes where our children are not hugged by a father, but yet we want this young man to be a perfect guy to your daughters. We cannot have communities where we just go about our business as if our young people are third-class citizens and don't invest in them and expect them to do well. You can't have a child who have never seen you on your knees praying and want a praying mantis in a school. It can't happen like that. And so what Yuri is saying, if we want to deal with our children in a positive way, the system that surrounds our young people must be working. We can't spare an expense. And that is why I lend my expertise to the Division of Education in these regards, because we must understand the system that surrounds our young people, and we must also understand the challenges that they face. Juliet, sometimes you come to work here in the morning and you dragging because you didn't have a good night, and but nobody asks the young person, how was your night? And why are you behaving the way you are behaving this morning? And we must pay attention. Allow me 30 seconds to give you a quick example. I was in a school going to a meeting, minding my business, which I don't normally do when it comes to young people. And I saw the police came and real drama in the school. And they're talking about we go lock you up. It's every Monday morning we had to come to deal with you. And I said, copy, because they know me. I said, well, let me talk to the young people. It took me 5 minutes. 5 minutes only. The young boy opened his shirt and his entire chest was blue-black. On Friday afternoon after school, he goes to his father, right? And when he goes there, the stepmother kick him down step. They lock the fridge. He has no food. It's abuse after abuse. So every Monday morning, his social environment is saying, I am not well. But nobody's paying attention. We are paying attention to the punitive side of his behavior, rather asking the question, why is this young man behaving the way he's behaving? And if we are able to look at the social environment and treat with the environment, then we will understand. And some of the things the social environment can do from a school perspective. One, let us put things in place for young people to have activities. I was at a principal conference. The SS3 was inviting me to deliver at their conference. Powerful conference they had there, and good exchange of ideas. And one of the things I said, as a policy, every school should have a child with a minimum of 3 extracurricular activities in that school. Give them something to do. Look at when these fights happen. Look at when these fights happen at 4 o'clock in the evening. These fights are happening during the school day on lunchtime. And I'm happy to report that in some of these schools, we are seeing in Tobago, the work that I'm doing with the division, some of these schools are putting these things in place to get these children activities that they need to do during the lunchtime. I've also indicated that we need to do training and development because you cannot fix what you do not understand. You learn to teach maths and English. You learn psychology and you didn't learn how to deal with dysregulated behavior. So we have to help these teachers understand what they are dealing with. Some of these teachers come in the environment and they are clueless as to what is this? What is this I am seeing here? I don't know how to help this. And so again, training and development is a major thing the secretary and her team has put in place. And as you know, the kind of training I deliver when I deliver these training, you know, we deliver. And so we are in the works to deliver some of these trainings to teachers throughout the island because it is imperative that they understand what it looks like. And one of the things I also recognize, we always do a lot and we leave out the parents.
That's precisely, and let me jump in here just to get you to answer that as well. I want you to touch as well for us, Hanif. We are in situations where we see a child reacting, and most recently we had that situation at Signal Hill, and we were chatting about that even as early as yesterday. But I want you, not just to focus on the child that was involved in the incident, but how do we also hold accountable the household and the home that child would have come from?
So I can't speak to the incident itself because I know the student support services and SS3, they are on it and they are doing human services to really get to the bottom of that. But I can speak to the general nuance of how do we understand. Too often we dive in and we take a punitive approach. And I sat in a meeting early this year with the school supervisors and some students, and I was amazed in the approach. It was very therapeutic. It was discipline with therapeutic intervention. And I think when you amalgamate the two, right, you will see change. It is not, let me come and beat you over your head, because we need to understand, Julien, why that child did what he or she is doing. We need to understand the nexus as to what may have caused this child to act the way they act. They didn't wake up in the morning and decide to act all crazy. No. And so the point you're making there, we need to invest heavily in our parents. Now we recognize we call a parent meeting and 10% of the school population shows up. And I have devised a plan. I said, listen, we need to go where the people at. They go in the church, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Let's find ourselves there. They're in the market. Let's find ourselves there. Let us have these meetings within the communities where we can get to them as opposed to them coming to us. You remember people working. People can't take time off and all these kind of things to come in the middle of the day. But in order for this to work, we have to have a triangle effect. And the triangle effect that I've designed is one where as school and teacher, we must pay attention to the school as the infrastructure and the people therein, our teachers, because our teachers are equally suffering. We have not done for our teachers what needs to be done coming out of COVID. During COVID, our teachers turned into Superman and superhero.
Correct.
By two, because they were already Superman and Superwoman. They had to quickly put their little corner of their houses into classrooms. They had to get devices. They had to learn to do something that they were not hired to do, teach from home, right? So we need to make sure that our teachers and our school, through our principals, so we're talking about training and development, specialized type of counseling services, giving them the tools that they could understand. Then we have to work with the child itself, because I also believe that sometimes the parent is not emotionally available for that child for one reason or the next, because sometimes the parent is so caught up with work, whatever, and life, they may not be emotionally. So we have to give our students the legs to stand on. So we need to actually give them the work, bring in the experts, bring in the people to guide them, to give them the tools that they need. And the third leg is our community. Where are our churches? Where are our mandis, our mosques? Where are our communities? Where is the businesses in our community? And this morning I call on our businesses to invest in the school, because the school have to pay somebody to come in to do after school activity. Suppose the school want to have a media program and they want to bring you in. You may not charge your full $1 billion that you will charge as an expert, but you may charge something to cover. Some businesses should be able to say to this school in my area, every month I will donate $5,000 towards your after school drive. So you see, if we use the Uri Bronfenbrenner method and we pull all the three parts together with our teachers and our school apparatus, our children and our community, we can begin to see change. But we're not doing it in a holistic manner. And I guess in some respect, I kind of like what I see at the division, because I get excited when people are excited. And when people are excited about change, and I see, student support services, they are ramping up, they are doing what they need to do. I think they're coming on tomorrow, so they will explain more of the integral part of what they are doing. And I like to see that. So the question is, and when I was speaking with the administrator over the weekend, it was, how can we synergize all the pieces together to ensure that we don't waste money and we don't duplicate by providing the services to our schools and our students that is most in need, and of course, our parents.
Indeed. One of the questions I want to also look at, Hanif, we get to the point where, and I love the fact that we're looking at that holistic, speaking to that holistic, environment that surrounds our children. So it's not just about the child being in school. And one of the areas I want to get to, should we at some point consider some elements of punitive engagement, not so much so for the child, but for the parents and the household from which they come? And I use the example in relation to, again, discussions which took place yesterday. We have this scenario, things have happened at a school, a child has acted out, attempted to be violent, used a weapon, etc. Should we not have some element of, let's make a visit to that home to see what's happening there? And I'm not saying you're going to lock up anybody or you're going to that, but you recognize the need for that level of intervention, even if it means having some support of the TTPS, because you get to the point where you realize this child is not acting out on their own by and large. There may be exceptional cases, but ultimately, how do we get to that point so as to hold the parents and to hold those who have that direct responsibility that sometimes take it for granted because they're doing the wrong thing at home, But in their minds, just as you're saying, they're still hoping for the best to be exemplified out there. How do we hold them accountable and just give them that, as we would say a long time, a little shake up to recognize, hey, the actions you're doing here really impacting the life of your child?
Very interesting. I don't want to use the word punitive, but in 2018 and before that, the Children's Court came into being, a powerful tool in our youth apparatus in Trinidad and Tobago. And in that apparatus, we have something called a peer, the peer program, right? This is a perfect scenario, and I have made the point, and I'm making the point again to the leaders of the judiciary, that more needs to be done in relation to that peer sanction program in every school. Because the way I remember the program being set up, a teacher can refer a child to go before that peer. And what this does, it takes away the punitive measure from the action, and it becomes rehabilitative. It becomes restorative. We want to restore. We don't want to lose a child, because I don't know if Trinidad and Tobago don't understand. Every time we expel a child, every time we lose a child, put away your money, because it's jail, it's negativity, they can't add value to society. We don't want that. We want a child to be able to grow and develop and add value to society. So what you're talking about there is powerful. Definitely the home should receive serious intervention. The Children's Authority should already be involved, right? The student support services, I know they are already involved. The specialist like myself was called in to be involved, to find out the trauma. So I will go deeper into what is. And once we find out what is going on there, we create a plan. But the plan, Julian, the plan is not always coming together holistically, because our agencies doesn't always work together, and that is one of my major challenges, the siloed effect. So you could imagine how, if the synergistic approach is applied here, and this child or these children go before our youth court, right? And we start to provide services because sometimes a parent need help, but they don't know how to get the help. They need the experts to guide them, and that is what the youth court is designed for. That is what the family court, not to lock you up and throw away the key and to make you seem as if you're a bad parent, but to say, you know what, mom, you know what, dad, we recognize that you need a little more help than average. Let us help you. Not from I'm a big stick person come beating you on your head. Parents go through too much already. And we engage with the system through the court, the children's authority, and all of these people without putting negative labels on them, and we provide the guidance. Once this is done, you will see the changes because we are all going to be working together. Get in there and find out what, because every fight we see wasn't born out of an immediacy. Correct. It was brewing, it was growing, and no one was able to put a stop to it.
Correct, indeed. And viewers, at this point, we're going to be heading out to a quick break. Don't worry, we are coming back with Hanif Benjamin, and certainly what we're hearing is things that we're very pleased about, and also happy to hear that most certainly he's not just speaking in silos, if I know the gentleman any at all, from my engagement with him, currently engaged and also providing support. So kudos also going out to the Division of Education, Research and Technology, Secretary Hackett, Assistant Secretary Kerr, and Administrator Baker Henry, and the entire team there for really seeking the kinds of intervention that we need. And as we say, not just resorting to the holding the individual accountable. As I always say, folks, I believe in young people. I believe no matter what, no matter the circumstance. And I always make the point, we can't rely exclusively on the home anymore. Young people just need at least one person to continue to believe in them. So if you're out there, whatever you're doing in the mix, remember that you have that responsibility, not just for your own, but you believing in one other young person. You might be that sense of hope that encourages them to continue to do good. We're certainly going to be right back to continue the conversation with Hanif Benjamin as we speak school violence and the solutions as we move forward. But at this point, we want to remind you viewers that this is your opportunity to share the live, share the live, share the live.
Good morning, morning.
Welcome back to the morning show on Tobago Updates Television. I am Adana Kambe. It's 7:35 a.m. and we continue conversation with Mr. Hanif Benjamin, and he is a clinical traumatologist, youth development specialist. That conversation that we started with Julien earlier, it's a very important conversation. School violence and what is the solution. We've been talking about the issues. We've been focusing so much on the issues and not about getting to the root of the problem and providing solutions from grassroots. We oftentimes wait until a situation is escalated and then we try to blame somebody. Correct. Or we try to punish somebody, or we try to apprehend somebody, and we don't go into what the problem is, where the problem stemmed. And we spoke about that in the first segment of this conversation, and you touched on so many issues that we take for granted. You know, we take for granted that something probably happened at home, why this child is acting out in
Correct.
school. The teacher does not know how to deal with this. You mentioned that teachers had to adapt and do things they weren't paid to do. A teacher was not paid to deal with a disruptive child. When a teacher goes to UE or wherever they get their degree, it's about education.
Correct.
So they're not equipped with the tools and the skills to deal with disruption in the classroom. And so, of course, the first thing to do is punish, because we grew up with spare the rod and spoil the child. So we want to be aggressive and we want to, So we also want to talk about the type of training, because we talk about corporate having to come on. And we always talk about on this program that is a cooperative effort.
Correct.
No man is an island. No situation is isolated. And so we need all hands on deck. We spoke about going into communities, going into homes, going to churches, everybody coming on board. But what we want to talk about is what type of approach, what type of training these professionals now need to have to be equipped. Because when corporate comes on, what are we presenting as a package for training? Mm-hmm. What areas do we need to touch on? How do we equip our teachers? How do we equip our students? How do we equip our parents to mitigate these situations before they explode into what they are now?
Well, you're speaking on so many powerful lines there. And let me just back up one sec. Our parents must understand that when something goes positive in the school, it affects all. And if something is negative in the school, it also affects all. That's right. So I want people to understand that the issues in our school touch every single household.
Correct.
Bar none. Whatever your position, Every single household is affected. And so if we are to provide a solution, it must also come from every single household, including corporate Tobago. And so the clarion call is to get corporate to come on to support the division, in my view, in relation to the training. And one of the things, again, for tutors was the Student Support Services Division last year brought me on to do a training on serious emotional disturbances for their guidance counselors and social workers in the school. Again, because there is a belief that we are not understanding what is serious emotional disturbances. And that is what we have been seeing post-pandemic, where our children, they are not diagnosed per se with a diagnosis in terms of mental health, but they are going through serious emotional challenges that they have not learned how to manage. And so as the professionals, we must learn to recognize when that young man is heading down a trajectory that is not positive. We must understand when this child is loud and aggressive in class and all of a sudden this child is no longer loud and aggressive. For a teacher, you might celebrate
That's
because
right.
you don't have to, but something is wrong.
That's right.
And so one of the trainings we did last year with the Student Support Services was understanding serious emotional disturbances in children and adolescents. And again, at the principal conference, you know, the SS3 put out a clarion call that training will be happening. And I want to be bold enough to say that training will be happening. And that training will be done for our primary school teachers soon enough, because they too need to understand. Because I tell my teachers, yes, you went to UE to learn to teach math, English, or social studies. But let me tell you something. The inability to teach comes out of the serious emotional disturbances in the children. When you come to school, you want an environment that can be calm enough to allow knowledge to flow and move. But if a child or children is emotionally disturbed, then you can't do that. And so that's one of the training that I have carded, understanding serious emotional disturbances along with managing stress in the classroom. I'm going to teach teachers how to manage the level of stress in the classroom. Because as I said, as a teacher, you come to school with stress, right? As a child, they come to school with stress, but we don't pay attention to the stress of the child. The stress of the child is then translated into a behavioral issue. And so we need to recognize when that child comes to school in the morning. We're also going to be looking at dealing with aggressive children, how to manage aggression, how to recognize aggression. For example, you don't loud up a young man, you don't embarrass him. When you do that, what happens? Right? That young man locks off. They don't like no embarrassment and shine up thing. You have to understand the culture of adolescence, which is very different to what it was long time. And so we have to help them to see these things, right? Also going to reintroduce positive youth development, right? I would like to ask a corporate sponsor this morning to sponsor that training. Positive youth development for the teachers.
Yes, because corporate is going to want that same young person employed in their establishment, or they're going to want people like that employed in their establishment. So we have to start preparing them from now and giving them the support.
If you call businesses today and you ask them to explain to you the challenges they're having with young people in the workplace,
I can just imagine.
It is a mirror of what was going on in school. So if we don't address it there, it translates
that's right.
into your business place.
Of course.
And so we are calling on corporate to say, you know what, let us get, that powerful positive youth development training, change the paradigm in terms of how we see and treat with young people. I also have a powerful program called Parenting from Love, because I hate the term, you're going to parent class. It makes you seem as if you're a bad parent. Mm-hmm. That program as well works with child and parent. So we help rebuild the home. So you identify children, because trust and believe. If a child is having challenges in school, there's also challenges elsewhere that needs to be addressed. And so we need to examine and through that Parenting from Love program, which I will also put on the table, we can capture the challenges. We also have to understand the social support that is surrounding our parents. Why are they absent emotionally? And that is going to be a critical conversation that we're going to have. And those are some of the powerful training that we have lined up. But again, if we want to fix the issue that is affecting all, then all must be part of the solution.
That is so true, because what I'm saying is that, we tend to wait until something has happened. We tend to be very reactive. And I like the fact that now we're seeing, listen, we have to be proactive. We have to know that situations exist. We have to know that people have issues and situations that they don't speak about. You mentioned in the first part of the interview, sometimes when you're doing counseling, it's through WhatsApp and they're sitting in the same room because they no longer know how to have face-to-face conversations.
This iPad have their handwriting on it as well. Because they will prefer to write what they're going through. They could explain what they're going through text lingo. And until I'm able to get them to a place where they can verbalize how they feel. Let me tell you something. When I'm doing assessments, I give parents the same assessments as the child. So for example, I'll just use PHQ-9, which is a depression inventory. The child would score, and I will give the parent to score the same in separate rooms. Almost 90% of the time, if the child is scoring 3s on one end, the parent is scoring 0. So it tells me as a clinician that as parents, we are not understanding the serious emotional disturbances of your own child. So therefore, when they act out because of the pain they have been festering internally and is unable, because if you, mommy, don't understand what I'm going through and nobody I can talk with, it will come out somewhere, somehow. One of the powerful things I also propose to introduce, which we started, as a matter of fact, at the same Signal Hill School last year, early this year, is mindfulness and restorative justice and restorative circle. We need to repair, but in order to repair, we need to get the mind right. When we come to school in the morning, everybody's chaotic. Sometimes even teachers flying in at the handle to start class at the minute, the children running in late, and everybody's chaotic. We need to bring it down. And throughout the world, we are hearing and we are seeing research where schools are using meditation and mindfulness, where we have a moment just to bring it down. When we bring it down, you set the tone for your school. And that is something that we need to introduce, even in the workplace. Because we rush in and we just do what we need to do. But we need to be able to bring the mind down. And I had a session with these students. I light the candle, I put on the music, and in 10 minutes, I'm hearing snore as if it's midnight. Because the children were so calm. One child said, you know how long I feel this way? When I help them to remove the anxiety from their body, from head to toe, through guided meditation. They said, I have not felt this way in forever. They said, so what you do to me? I'm feeling strange.
Because they're not used to being calm. They're used to everything being hectic and topsy-turvy and having to deal with so many things.
All day, every day, your body is just going at that rate.
It's damaging. It really, really is damaging. And I'm so happy that we're having this conversation. I'm so happy that the division and, the stakeholders are coming on board. And I want to make a call. I want to join with you this morning and make a call to corporate society, corporate Trinidad and Tobago, to come on board and make this investment in our young people. And trust me, it's not just for them. It's for generations to come. And it's also to establish further your own business. So let us make that investment in them as we move forward. We all need the support because we want to have a better society, a better Trinidad and Tobago, a safe space, a clean space, a space where we are calm, where we can relax, where we can feel comfortable to know that our children are, in environments where they can express themselves and that they feel understood. So let's provide the support that they need. All this training is coming on board very soon. So I want to encourage parents, however you can be a part of it, to be a part of it, the children, the teachers, or the persons who need the training. I want to, make a plea that you make yourselves available for the training, accept the training because we want to move on from this position. We do not want to come back in the media and have to be speaking about violence in schools, violence at home, misunderstood young people, children going into institutions where they should not be kept.
I agree
So we really need to come together to ensure that we get this done. In closing, Hanif, how do you want to move forward? What do you want to tell our viewing audience, both parents, teachers, just viewers who are interested, corporate society, as we move forward with this situation?
Listen, we are in a difficult place. We have to treat with the insurgents now. We have to treat with the ones that have gone, and we have to treat with before. And so we need to come together holistically, everybody, to really figure out how to treat with our young people, not from a punitive perspective, but more from a youth development perspective. Every child has the spark, the ability, the impetus to do better. Whether that better is at sports, math, English, woodwork, chemistry, whatever it is, we the adult need to harness in those young people the ability and the willingness to do it, because they may not be getting it in their social environment. So we need to help create a social environment where they can thrive and develop so that they can add value to Tobago, they can add value to society. And in order for us to do that, we are calling on all. I believe the division is doing an awesome job to push this agenda. And I also wish if corporate Tobago also come on board to assist, because we all need the help.
That's right. And a better Tobago will be the results of this coming together. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been speaking with Hanif Benjamin, clinical traumatologist, youth development specialist, and we've been talking about school violence and the solution. We've spoken about so many different things, and I do hope that you join with us as we work towards ensuring the violence in school ends, the violence at home ends, and that we have a better Tobago for all. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go for a short break before we continue conversations in studio. And of course, before we go, we want to invite you to share the live, share the live, share the live. We'll be back.